Hi, I'm Sam Phipps, the worship and online pastor at Lee Park Church in Monroe, North Carolina. Listen, we're all facing the greatest disruption ever witnessed in our lifetime and possibly the history of the world. And in a world of constantly changing rules, patterns, ideas, we all need clarity on issues that are facing us. While we cannot provide certainty, we feel we can bring to you clarity. We are bringing you a special edition of our podcast called Respond. It is our attempt to give you important information during the COVID shutdown and reopening. If you have any questions, my email address will be on the screen. Lee Park Church cares about you, your family, your well-being, and more. We are thankful that the Lord has given us this opportunity to bring you information. So let's get started with today's episode. And joining me, we have Pastor Chris Justice. He's obviously the senior pastor here at Lee Park Church. Pastor Chris, before we get started, welcome, by the way. Thanks for taking time. I know you're a busy man.
I love it. I love the set, and I love the opportunity to let people know what we're doing in the community. Thanks for doing it.
Yes, sir. Glad we can. We're going to talk about the reopening of more of Lee Park on Sundays. Before we get started, recently in a sermon, you talked about wearing masks. And so I came up with one I wanted to show you, put on.
Yes.
So if you can tell, it's hard to write on these, but it's...
Hate masks, love Jesus. Yeah. Yes, I think that's perfect.
Great, that's what we can wear. I have one for, no, not really. I would advise if you come up with one of these, don't write on it with a Sharpie, because not only will the mask hurt you, but the Sharpie will too, because I was feeling it. Anyway, we talked about that. Last week, a couple of weeks ago, you talked about in a message about how we're going to, what it's going to look like when we reopen. So what are your thoughts? Just share with us right now what's going on.
I'm excited about it because I'm excited to move forward. I'm excited to take another step in the reopening process, and I'm thankful that we have a church that's so flexible and really agreeable. We have a really unique situation here with our membership. They want to be in church like so many others, but they also recognize the need to do things well, to be smart, to be cautious and thoughtful. And that's a real advantage for us in this ministry.
What areas of ministry will be affected now in the reopening at Lee Park?
We're still not quite ready to do the Awana on Wednesday nights. We're still not quite ready to do some of the senior adult things that we were doing. We're still going to have to do some of these social distancing things. But the most affected and impacted ministry coming up in September, small group Bible study. We want to get back to discipling our people. We just have to find a way that the small group can sort of spread out a little bit so they can be in a smaller group in a distanced setting, because you've got to have that discipleship time. As much as our kids want to be back together for schools that we hear a lot about, in the church world, our adults want to be back together too. They want to share each other's lives, they want to share stories, they want to learn, and they want to be in a setting where they can ask questions, where that interaction you don't get in worship that you get in the small group settings. And so that's something that we're going to see a lot more of on campus, and I can't wait. I know our people can't wait. That's true, and I've noticed that with the choir. When we've tried to rehearse now, we have 2 staggered rehearsals on Wednesday night to keep everyone separate. And that's what they want to do. They want to sing and they want to rehearse, but they want to just see people. Right. They want to see nice people, and they want to enjoy that time together and not have to have a mask on. And so we have maintained social distancing and working on that. I know we're going to outgrow that soon. So small groups will be coming back, and there'll be a schedule for that. I know not all the groups probably at first. Some of our senior adult groups, I think, have wisely said they're not ready yet. So we'll work with them on how to slowly sort of reintroduce them. A lot of it begins with their comfort level and our ability to make sure that we can say to them, we know this is safe. But we know enough about the virus, we respect the virus, and we recognize that the most vulnerable people are our senior adults. And so we want to be extra cautious with them. We don't want to rush anything, and they don't want to be rushed. And again, we're very fortunate because many times, senior adults, I've lived here a long time. I don't need people to tell me what to do. I can do what I want to do. And if I want to make that decision, and we respect that, but we also love them enough to ask them to just be careful and patient. And I think they love us enough that they're willing to trust us on that. Some classes will still be online, on Zoom. Yeah, that availability will be there for people who who are not quite ready to come back yet. But what we're seeing with those numbers is they're trailing off and trailing off. It was a good thing to connect us somehow, but that personal interaction is obviously missing. And so we'll still offer it for people who need it, but the majority of our people will come back face to face.
I think and it's important too to let people know that, if you still don't feel safe, or if you are wearing a mask while you're on the entire campus, we're not judging you.
Right.
We understand that, and so it's important that our people don't judge. I mean, some of those need to wear that mask, and that's okay.
Sort of dividing our campus up now. In the main worship center, we got plenty of room to social distance. Our people have been very good about spacing out when they come. That hasn't seemed to bother them that much. But the lower campus is going to be a lot different because you've got smaller buildings, smaller hallways. You don't have the big place like we do here in the worship center. And so we're going to make mask wearing something you have to do on that lower campus in and out of those buildings. And when you get into a room, if we're not comfortable that there's 6 feet gap between people, we'll ask those groups to wear masks. And we'll try to find them large enough rooms where that won't be an issue. But in and out of hallways and in and out of buildings, they'll have to wear those masks. And that'll be interesting to see how our people handle that. But again, I'm confident that our people will do well. I think they so desperately want to get together. If it means wearing masks, they'll do it. We've seen that with the school. The kids don't love wearing them in and out of the hallways and in their rooms, but they really don't love staying at home. They want to be on campus. So they've been very easy to work with. I think our adults will be the same way.
Yeah, I think so. There are some who don't care.
Right.
There's no such thing as 6 feet. And I had someone yesterday, he got right in my space, and I was like, I felt creepy. It was weird. Not against him, but it was like, I'm not used to this. And then you've got those who, they know, there's that wall that's been put up. And so, we just have to, I guess, work together on this as we go forward in it. Yeah. What has guided you in this process of making these decisions?
I've taken in a lot of information. I've tried to listen to people who are dealing with things that we're dealing with from the size that we are. Tried to listen to churches that have multi-campus approach to ministry like we do, to try to take in what they're doing. I've listened to lots of podcasts. I've called people. I've met with people and tried to gather information. I've got some good friends who are in ministry here that have churches similar to ours that we've been able to gather together and talk. And then just this morning, texting with one of them today. And so I'm gathering all of that and then putting it in our context. Pastors have to do that. If I've been here, it'll be 15 years in November. So there's a certain comfortableness to the congregation and myself. Whereas some guys may have only been in a church for a year, so you've got to really lean on some people that the church does trust. And you really got to lean on those before you make big decisions. But I think we've got the situation here that we've been here long enough, our people are flexible enough that I think they trust us, which is very, very helpful. But you take all that information that what everybody's doing, gather all that you can, and then put it in the Lee Park context. What are the Lee Park people doing? How will they respond? And then the last thing you need to do is just prayerfully consider, Lord, what would you have me do to make sure that I shepherd your people well? And a part of shepherding your people well is caring for them and loving for them and not putting them in a position where they're going to get hurt. And so we did some things maybe a little more slowly, and maybe some might think we're doing them quickly, but I think there always has to be that intentionality of, is this good and loving and thoughtful, and are we showing our people and walking with our people through this process? I don't want anyone to get sick. Yeah. How do we move forward responsibly that we're not the cause that makes things worse? And so those are the things we have to go through. It's not easy. I tell you what, Sam, in the time I've been here, the hardest decisions I've had to make as the pastor have been over this time period during COVID.
Oh my goodness, that is so true. Mm-hmm. It is. You mentioned trust, and I was thinking, you can drop a grenade in the middle of a message, and the way you present it and smile about it, people can go, okay, I trust him. And it happened yesterday, what was it, a couple of Sundays ago when you told us about the mask, and you've mentioned that several times. And people just accept it. People were like, okay, that's what we'll do. We trust you, and that's great that you're able to do that. And I appreciate that as a pastor. Yeah. You're a great interview, by the way. This is it. I mean, I don't have to ask any questions. He has all the information without even, because that was your job before.
Yes, so you're doing a great job as
the
lead anchor here. That's good.
Very much. No pressure. Question: any concerns going forward?
Yeah, you're always concerned about, what happens when you do get a person who gets sick. But, it's just planning. I mean, we're putting our deacons are so good. Our deacons are so good. So they're going to be in the lower campus at every entrance point. We're going to temperature check everybody who comes. We're going to ask the questions that you ask. Have you been exposed to somebody? Do you have a cough? You've had headaches? And we'll get these things. And then if there is an issue or a question or a concern, we've got two excellent people who are involved in this in their professional lives that will be off to the sides. We'll move people out of lines that are getting in, and we'll have them talk to them and explain, this is why we think it's best for you not to be on the campus now. But our deacons are really taking charge of that. And when we put the plan together and put it out before them, they did such a good job of taking our idea from the staff level and then making it manageable for the people and then their leadership authority in the church. So I'm not concerned really about that. I'm not concerned about how our people will deal with it. The overriding concern is always what happens when somebody gets sick. And we've had a test run with the school. Since we have the school here, we've had some kids that our parents have been so good. My son or daughter has been exposed, doesn't have any symptoms, but we're going to keep them home for a couple weeks and do the online education. And when we're sure that everything's okay, then they'll come back. Our parents have been so responsible with our kids about the school that we're going to put everything in place to keep it safe for the adults, but we're still going to count on the adults to be careful. You may have to miss Sunday school a couple weeks just to be safe. But again, I think if we're open and honest with them, and I think they're open and honest with us, then the greatest fear of having a big outbreak is lessened, and that's what we're going for. How can you be responsible and live again? And that's what we're trying to find, that balance. And I think we've done a pretty good job with that.
I think so. I agree. We've had that issue with the choir. I think we've had 2 choir members that had COVID, but they were not on campus. It was before they came back, and so they stayed away for more than 2 weeks, and it was fine. We prayed for them, which is what we're supposed to do, and we moved on past that. They're back now. Everybody's doing great, so we just pray that continue. Anything else you want to add to this? Anything else? Your message a few Sundays ago covered it so well, and I know you've added to that also. So anything else?
Well, God's Word is good, and it's true, and it's fun to watch the Holy Spirit move in the messages, things that have been planned out a year in advance, how His timing is still so good. His Word is always applicable. It always works. And the message a couple weeks ago about everybody is really a leader in this. We have leadership, but everybody is being equipped. Discipleship is meant to equip people so they can be leaders, and we need everyone to step up and be a leader. It's a perfect fit. And I don't have to go hunting through things. I mean, God can plan well in advance what to preach. If you're faithful to preach the Word, if you really do love people, it is so encouraging to see God do these things that only He can do. You recognize really that you're sort of an instrument, and a valuable instrument. He calls people and uses people, but He's leading the way. I mean, His Word is leading the way. He's leading the way. And in all of this, and as we play it out, if He receives glory, then we're doing our job. And that ultimately is what we want to do. And the Bible tells us that as we equip leaders and establish leaders and use leaders, that's the plan that God puts in place. And so that's what we want to accomplish at the church.
And I think it was evident in your deacons meetings that God has put leaders in place and will continue to do so.
They're so good. Our deacons are so good. We're so blessed. Our staff is so good. Our deacons are so good. And our people are so good. It is, my prayer would be for every church pastor out there, love your people, love your leadership, surround yourself with great people. That will get your people to trust you in the decisions you make. And then as the Lord leads you, then you can step out with more confidence. But we're blessed at Lee Park. We really are. And praise be to God for that.
Amen. That's great. Well, thank you for sharing with us today.
Thank you for having me.
It's been a great few minutes together, and I think folks are looking forward to coming back together and maybe not hugging, but at least seeing each other face to face. That would be great.
Thank you, Sam.
Yes, sir. Great information today on this podcast of Respond. Pastor Chris, thank you so much for bringing us this information. I want to leave you with this, Proverbs 3, 5, and 6, and it says, trust in the Lord with all your heart. Lean not on your own understanding, and in all your ways acknowledge Him, and He will make your path straight. Rely on the Lord today for His provision and His guidance and His power and His strength. I want to encourage you to trust in Him. I'm Sam Phipps. Thanks for watching today.